I'm kidding you not. I got 2 to 3 calls from people outside who really care about me, and they were like, "Are you okay? Is your house sinking?" I'm like, "No, it's not." Right. Kutumba serious agoytu. Oh God. Oh, what were we supposed to speak about?
I'm boring. My hobbies are boring.
No,
I don't watch movies. I don't watch cricket. I don't go on newsrooms. I go on Zoom.
Not even a mainstream news anchor or anything, but once the camera goes on, a few of my guests that I have interacted in the past, it's actually crazy. They have a completely different attitude. They switch up.
Am I like that?
What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?
Dude, don't lie. Liar.
I didn't even say anything.
So yeah, what else? Can't we think of fun things to talk about?
I'm Nota.
You're Nota?
I'm Nota. I'm actually Nota.
Put it on record, somebody write it down.
Actually, Nota has
Out of the interview.
We'll have to do a lot of editing on this, but we started with the most random thing, talking about dogs and comedians. I'm not saying in parallel, people will get offended for that also. Comparing dogs to comedians. People are so opinionated these days about everything that even if you say you're a dog lover, the cat lover gets offended.
Then I'm not asking. Okay, done. Interview done. Cut. Done. You should be so ungrateful. No interview. Bye.
Hello, good evening, and welcome back to this podcast with Swarajya and Bharat Varta. Today, finally, with a good audio-visual setup, I'm joined by none other than Rashmi Samant. Rashmi, thank you so much. How's Bangalore treating you, and how's the weather?
Well, the weather is good, but Bangalore's treating me very badly with the traffic, the pollution, and I mean, there's construction everywhere on every other road.
But that's
and
a sign of
stuck.
progress. There's two ways of looking at it. Yeah, I'm a lawyer for Bangalore. You're arguing with me.
Well, I come from Udupi, so I think I like the tier 2, tier 3 and tier...
But in that case, flooding wouldn't have been an issue because you guys face floods now and then.
No, we don't. That is a very bad misconception. We do not flood, okay? There's no flooding in Udupi.
Same with us.
Okay, sure. I think the entire country saw Bangalore flooding. I think that was pretty bad. I mean, there were many memes about it, but I think, it deserved the sort of attention that any other floods get. But I think suddenly it just became a meme that, Bangalore is flooding, and then I'm seeing like techies going to work through floods, but then there are people dying as well. It was completely dehumanized to an extent.
There was a lot of misinformation because ultimately I think people in Bangalore itself had different perceptions. Like if you ask somebody who's working in the IT sector and who's living around areas like Whitefield, they'll give you a completely different perspectives. I'm kidding you not. I got 2 to 3 calls from people outside who really care about me, and they were like, "Are you okay? Is your house sinking?" I'm like, "No, it's not. We live in a different part. We live in South Bangalore, and those areas are perfectly fine." So it's just that 10% of that particular area which is inundated by floods, right? The rest of the areas are actually fine. But I think there is a diversity in terms of how Bangalore has also developed in that sense. First there was BBMP, there was BDA, which carried out certain projects in a certain manner. Now there is BBMP. But yes, I think the common ground that everybody agrees on is that it's a mess.
Yeah, it alternated between legal and illegal constructions.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say, and I think it really needs to be addressed. Urban planning is something we don't take seriously in India, and I think these are going to be the consequences of that. But I think it was also very disheartening to see people lose their lives, in certain areas because of this.
But since you have also lived in London for a while, and from what I know, you also travel a lot. When there is a comparison that, hey, Bangalore can become like Singapore, first of all, I have my own technical arguments for it, but do you think that's a fair comparison that, Bangalore should become like a Singapore or a New York or a California?
Well, I think that's a wrong aspiration to have to begin with, because all the cities have started to look similar to me now. I've traveled so much that every city literally looks the same to me. There's a Starbucks around every corner, and there's a McDonald's popping up here and there. I think that shouldn't be the aspiration. But if you're trying to think of being a Singapore as a you say as an epitome of development, then yes, I think Bangalore can be that. It can be as developed as any other city, but I think the infrastructure, the public infrastructure is something that we need to pay more attention to. I think we've got everything. We've got the amazing buildings, I think we've got good trees and good landscaping to go with it, but I think we don't have the roads or the
I don't know about
sidewalks
buildings.
to...
Tucker Carlson will disagree with you. That entire controversy, and Indians are up in arms anyway. They're looking for good content, and they're taking Tucker Carlson and they're wiping his face with Vidhan Sauda and the other architectures that we have. But do you actually find that? Because if you look at it, right now we are in an apartment setup as well. And you look at these old structures. I'm not taking you back 1,000, 2,000 years with the Hoysala architecture and all of that. Just look at our recent history. We've been able to pull off such magnificent architectural marvels in India. But today there is an unfair comparison, but also it's very westernized in terms of how it's actually planned, with all the high rises coming up and all of that. And you look at a country like China, high rises are actually becoming a liability for a completely different reason. But that's that. Do you think when we chase development, when we chase progress, we've forgotten that Indic element of it?
That's because we're colonized by the end of the day. Agree or not, we are colonized to a great extent. I mean, I think some of us are a little more decolonized than others, but there is that colonial mentality that we have. And when we measure progress, when we measure development, when we even think about what an ideal apartment should be, we look at the skyscrapers that dot the New York skyline or something like that, and that becomes an aspiration. You're sitting in one, so that becomes the aspiration. I think there's a definite need to decolonize so that we can actually develop at our own pace in symphony with our nature, with our sort of geographical conditions and our weather and everything of that sort. I think there is that specific necessity rather than setting up a very aspirational...
Maybe I think it's also exclusive because from where you come from, Udupi, you still have the traditional houses. I mean, even in our families, one of the aspirational thing for us is that we don't live in an apartment and we live in an area where you have a lot of interior space, there's breathable air. So it's the old aspirations that are again renewing in a lot of traditional families like ours. Or maybe it's just that cosmopolitan crowd which wants the high rises, they want to be on the 35th floor.
Maybe, I don't know, but my house will take you back to the Malgudi days. So Udupi is still back in the Malgudi days.
Was shot in Udupi, right? In Agumbe, I think.
In Agumbe, yes. So it was a house similar to mine in Agumbe, and it's just a few kilometers off. So I mean, it's still the same, and I think there's a deeper spiritual rooting, there's a deeper attachment, and there's more holistic sort of happiness that comes from living there, because then you're truly rooted to who you are, your identity and everything. So I think we need to change our aspirational values, but I think a city like Bangalore can't just have so many Malgudi days homes because of the space constrictions. So I think high rise is perhaps the solution, or maybe we start developing more tier 2, tier 3 cities so that we keep the population distributed and not, coop them up in certain cities like Bangalore and the other sort of metropolitan cities. I think there's more necessity for, distributed...
I mean, from my interactions with whether it's the BJP or the Congress people in the state, because both of them blame each other. But I think they've arrived at a point where both of them blame themselves, but then they have to keep blaming each other because they have no other alternative. At least if there was an Aam Aadmi party here, they could have blamed somebody else. There is no other third alternative as well. And JDS is largely restricted to the rural areas. But otherwise, since you've come back from the UK, now you're shuffling between cities and all of that. So what have you been up to?
Well, I mean, I run my own company, so it's in the insurance broking sector. So
does it have insurance for stupidity? Because I think we can use that a lot.
I think that is a huge risk. So, underwriting that would be a huge risk because you'll have to keep handing out claims every now and then. Nobody would want to insure stupidity in India. So, I mean, not just India, around the world. I think humans are...
correct in 1 second. Look at that. terms and conditions applied.
Yeah, no, not just India, but everywhere in the world. I think stupidity is on the rise.
It's a global
As
phenomenon.
they say, it's a global phenomenon. As they say, entropy keeps rising in thermodynamics. I think stupidity in the human species, the Homo sapiens is just on the rise. So if we brought in stupidity as a, as a risk to be managed, we'd all go belly up, man. Like, we wouldn't
How
be
do you
able-
manage this? Because as somebody who comes from a business community myself, when I look at the kind of professions that my family has been occupied with, and I compare that to what I do, I cannot have the dichotomy. And when I mean dichotomy, I don't mean that in a negative way, right? Because you are somebody who's also politically inclined and you do a lot of media debates and all of that, and at the same time you run an insurance firm, if that's the right way to put it. So there's a distinct difference between both of them, and somehow in terms of comfortability, at least, like, we would prefer parallel professions when you approach a certain thing. Like, if I'm in journalism, I would be very comfortable with, say, like filmmaking or some other field. So it's in the same umbrella.
See, I feel that journalism is a very honorable profession, so you're okay doing that. But what I do, I think, largely falls under an umbrella called activism. And then I'd end up becoming an Andalan TV, wherein I'd have to perhaps park my views according to who's paying me. And that is something I absolutely abhor.
But then why do you consciously use the term activist? Because a couple of people have genuinely asked me to ask you that, because there is a lot of negative connotation to activists, rightfully so, in a lot of ways. You would want to project yourself in a different way, right? But you're still going ahead saying that it's okay to do that. So what's your approach, or you just went with the flow?
I mean, I think the stereotypes comes from the fact that a lot of people have done a lot of bad things under the umbrella of activism, but activism itself set out to do something good out there.
Right.
So I think I'm trying to redefine.
Just like journalism.
Yeah, just like journalism. I mean, journalism right now, I think it's quite in
very
disrepute.
bad. It's really
so
bad.
I think that, and I think what helps me do this is keeping my uta separate from my from my views, and that so that they're not connected to one another. That my uta and my this thing are separate. So I think, I generally, and I also enjoy this profession, honestly. It's a little bit of engineering, a little bit of legal stuff, and then a lot of, finance out there. So it's right up the alley of what I studied. I didn't study social sciences or humanities. I'm an engineer with a minor in business. I've taken economics, I've taken all of these topics. So it's right up the alley of what I studied and, create value in society, I think.
And are you still in touch with your folks from the UK? Because what's happening, we can get into that for a while. Because there's sharp polarization in how it's reported. And I think, just for the sake of argument, let's also address what the other side is saying, right? Especially with the Leicester attacks. One narrative is that, this was all because of an India-Pakistan match which went awry. There were crowds which became emotional. One side said Allahu Akbar, the other side said Jai Shri Ram, and this is how things actually escalated. But there is an Islamist project in the UK which has been in the shadows, and I think there are largely patterns and signs which can confirm to that particular eventuality, which is probably going to happen in the future. So what's your take on this whole thing? How do you look at it?
So firstly, I have worked briefly with the British Parliament before coming back. So I have a lot of colleagues in government, and I have a lot of friends and, people who've become family now. So I've got a lot of people basically back there. So I think I'm very much in touch with what's going on, and a lot of these neighborhoods are places I had frequented back then during my vacations or just up for visit. So I know these places very well, and I know the people there as well. Secondly, I think when it comes to the Islamist forces, the extremist forces in the UK, there has been a very deep undercurrent, be it the grooming gangs, for over 10 years. And all of their nationalities were Pakistani. All of their ideologies were Islamist. So it's not like, it was this thing. So they had a specific identity, the grooming gangs. They targeted young girls, and then they got them addicted to this whole triad of abuse and, substance abuse and whatnot, physical abuse and whatnot.
There was a narrative war there also. I came across something which said there was a Hindu member in the grooming gang, so you cannot claim that this has Muslims exclusively or any other particular race or faith over there. So the extent to which the other side fights is what surprises me, because Hindus, yes, there is a resistance. I think there is a fight back. I think there is a reckoning of thought happening today that they are facing a civilizational battle. But I don't know to what extent people can actually prolong and protract their fight.
See, the thing is, Hindus in the UK, they are gainfully employed. Right. So they can't just come out on the street every other day because they have a job to do, family to feed and responsibility to have. They're not living off of the doles of the UK government. And you can, statistics speaks. 0% of the people, Hindu people, are in jails. Whereas I think with the other communities, up to 15% that they're in jails. They make up 15% of the jail, this thing there.
I didn't know this.
And also, a lot of the youth are not gainfully employed. They're not employed. So it's easy for them to, they're living out on doles. And this is literally UK statistics based on different minorities.
Right.
So it's easy to collect a mob because they have nothing better to do. And they're living off on, government doles. Unemployment, if you're unemployed and looking for a job, you can claim up to £1,000 from the government.
Right.
So you can be doing nothing, claiming this money, and by the by, gathering up in the afternoon with your buds and, create unrest.
Yeah.
So this is what is happening. And I think Leicester attack is not just a India-Pakistan match thing. I mean, a lot of the videos that have come up, there's one particular character there called Muhammad Hijab, who's seen instigating the youth, telling them horrible things about Hindus, about, our faith and reincarnation, and saying that we are weak people to believe in these things, and then that it's a very crappy thing, literal Hinduphobia. He's engaging in that. And he's a repeat offender. He was a part of an anti-Semitic march wherein the marchers were saying, horrible things like death to the Jews.
Right.
And he threatened the police, the riot police, which tried to contain that march, by saying that if you don't rein in your dogs, I'm going to kill them. He threatened to kill police dogs, basically. And it's all caught on media. Right. And this was maybe a year ago. He's a repeat offender. So the same man is doing this, and he's not of either Pakistani or Indian origin. He's an Egyptian Islamist so-called scholar who makes videos on YouTube. So that's who he is. Right. And I think to underplay this as an India-Pakistan thing, spiraling into a, all-out match between Hindus and Muslims is wrong, because the kind of people who are, masterminding this, the people who are instigating the mobs, they don't belong to either identities. They don't identify with either identities, either Indian or Pakistani. So this is definitely coming from a deeper sort of hatred rooted for people of indigenous religions. That comes from this whole Abrahamic mindset that indigenous people are kafirs, that they are others, that they don't have a right to live. So it comes from that very
the same case
dark
when,
place.
The Taco Bell incident happened as well. Because funnily, I was having an argument with a very, very radically leftist friend of mine just a day before, and then after one day this happens, and they were saying that there's no concrete evidence of Hinduphobia, and then I had to list out all the riots and the massacres and everything. They're like, acha, theek hai yaar, why are you going 50 years, 100 years back? Maybe there were different reasons for it, and here the person is clearly, instigating the person, saying that, you piss drinkers and whatnot.
And then you see Hindu flags being burnt in front of a temple. Okay, there's a mob surrounding the Leicester temple, and then they're burning a flag, and they're, coming up, they're walking on the compound wall, they're trying to displace the flags.
Mostly in the UK? Because from what I've heard, there is this undercurrent of a feeling, especially among UK Hindus, where they feel much more safer in Eastern Europe compared to, say, places like the UK. Is there a particular reason for that?
Maybe the demography.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in Eastern Europe, the demography is
UK
still...
and countries like France have a completely different approach when it comes to free speech. Like, they actually defend it, even if at any cost, right?
See, it's not at any cost, okay? They have clear-cut definitions of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, but they don't have a definition for Hinduphobia. So in case somebody calls somebody a cow piss drinker, then it's freedom of speech. But if somebody calls a Muslim something else, like an extremist or whatever, then that comes under hate speech and you're sentenced. So you see, there's a clear double standard there also over to which kind of a minority is being protected. So there are clauses and this thing. So free speech is not absolutist, like you're made to believe about the West or the UK. So it's only absolutist to certain minorities. I mean, anybody can say anything about the Hindus and get away in the UK, but not so much. They can't say something similar to the Jewish people. There are very strong anti-Semitic laws. They can't be saying things like that to Muslims. There are strong laws about Islamophobia. What happened in front of the Leicester temple could not have happened in front of a synagogue in the UK. Nobody would have dared to do that in front of a synagogue. Nobody would have dared to do that in front of a mosque. But because it's a temple, there's a free pass and some sort of a protection that just comes from this greed, this thing that, you know, you can always blame it on the Hindutva, RSS, BJP forces. I mean, the UK has the Conservative and the Labour Party. The BJP is in India. So if you have a problem with the BJP, come to India, and if you're a citizen here, you can protest it. If you're not, then it's none of your business. It's none of your business. And that, you know, when people come on channels and try to tell me that, you know, oh, it's anger against BJP that's coming out in UK, then I'm like, are you crazy? And number two, are you like a political party who's not able to protest in India gainfully, like the Congress? So you're seeking to go in the UK and do this sort of this thing. I mean, it's absolutely
PFI,
senseless.
there's Tipu Sultan party. There's all kinds of parties. There's a party based on Tipu Sultan,
who have no grounding here. So I mean, it would be fair for them to go to the UK and complain about BJP there. They'd get more screen time doing that. But I mean, I don't think that's the case. I think the case is that it's just an easy gate pass to justify crimes, because BJP and RSS have been vilified so much abroad. They've been vilified so much that you can literally say BJP, RSS and get away with harassing any Hindu.
Right. Speaking of hijab, I think we were one of the few people from Karnataka who actually fought for it. I mean, no offense to anybody else who would have fought for it. You also deserve the credit for it. But it was quite an episode, if you recall. And right now the case is going on as well. But let's not comment about the case right now since it's sub judice. You look at Iran. Iran, something very interesting is happening. And you look at the idiots over here, and you just think, you know, you're just wondering what the hell is happening to them, and how is the media amplifying this, and how much are the people actually buying it.
Let me tell you, simple answer, Stockholm Syndrome is what is happening here. So basically, if you're being abused, then there is a psychological term that the abused, they start forming a relationship with their abuser. And then they do everything to protect them. I just see that here. I mean, who would want to wear something like that? I mean, which woman in 21st century would want to cover herself like that, you know, so much, that too in the kind of heat that we live in here. I mean, wear the whole thing. I mean, and I mean, I think it's
Udupi is a place where people remove their shirts and go shirtless on their motorcycles because it's so humid.
It's so humid, I know. And women prefer, you know, cotton sarees, something light on fabric, so that it's you know, the heat is bearable. But that being said, I just feel like your face, every face is unique in this world, and it comes from this fact that your identity is unique. And if you're being asked to cover it up, I think that in itself is such an anti this thing to individuality, to identity, to basic freedoms. I mean, you're almost imprisoned that way.
The most disgusted I felt was when vocally there were a few girls who came out, and you can see through them that they're actually bullshitting the whole way, because you know it's not genuine when you see somebody speak that way. But they're coming out and they're saying, "Illa idu nam hakku, we know what to wear, we will wear what our men want us to wear," and all of that. You just feel disgusted. Fine, if you really want to wear that, go ahead, nobody's stopping you, but who are you to decide for the rest of the girls?
For the rest of the girls, exactly. And the problem is that the same girls who were on media during the initial 6 girls, 6 months ago, they have pictures on Instagram and Facebook with their hijab off, which means that they do not want it for themselves, and they're being coached. They're all minors by the end of the day. Who knows what pressure they're under? So I don't even want to, you know, maybe ridicule their, I actually sympathize with them. Maybe they're being forced to say this, and they're all minors. I mean, they're supposed to be studying, they're supposed to be given that, you know, equal spacing where they can figure out what they want for themselves when they are adults. But, you know, something is being forced upon them since when they're children. How do you expect them to grow up and have their own opinions?
Yeah.
I see pictures of, little girls, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds with a full burqa.
Yeah.
And then I wonder, how do you expect them to grow up and have their own opinions?
Yeah.
The same people who are claiming it to be their own opinions. If you've been fed the same thing since you were a child and you don't know anything better, then how do you know what your choices are and what your freedom is?
Yeah.
Then I think a school is a place where you can get it, because it's a common place where you interact with everybody, where you form your ideals, where you rebel against, what's being taught to you, where you form, your own perception of the world. And I think you deserve equality there. You don't deserve to be sent in a particular way.
Right. Okay, ತುಂಬಾ serious ಆಗೋಯ್ತು. Oh God. Oh. Temperature is rising in the room. What else can we talk about? Huh?
I don't know, yeah. What do we talk about? Do we talk about how crappy the last recording was? Like, I had my phone on the books.
It was really bad.
That was really bad. Take that video down, no?
I will, yeah.
Brahma.
No, we were talking about AIB, the controversy. So, just to give you a little context, AIB was the one who got into controversy because of the roast, and then there were Me Too allegations against some of its founders and crew members and all of that. They got out of relevance and they kind of shut down. And Raju Srivastava passed away, unfortunately, a day ago. And one of the comics, Rohan Joshi, he basically, in some Instagram comment on Atul Khatri's profile, I think if I'm not mistaken, he said he never stood up for comics when we actually needed support from that community, in spite of whether you lean left or right. It's your principle to stand up for free speech. At every occasion, he made fun of us, he dissed us, and he kind of said that our comedy is not good because he wanted no competition out there. And in the end, if I'm not mistaken, I'm paraphrasing, he said, fuck it, he's dead.
I think that's very disrespectful and in very bad taste. Again, someone who's so senior and someone who's just died. I think it's in bad taste.
That one personal differentiation, you know what I really like about politics of the 90s, especially Atalji when he was alive, there was this sense of respect even to your opposition, and people actually disagree, saying that no, because he led the opposition so far, they got to him, they destabilized his government or whatever. But my point is that I think there was a healthier culture in politics, not to pinpoint anything, but that's the environment that we live in today, where even after somebody's death, you have to shit on them. For me, he might be the most aggressive enemy I've faced, but when it comes to situations like these, you have to forgive them.
You have to forgive them, yeah. I think forgiveness is very, central to human this thing. And if you're more rooted in maybe in something, you'll learn about these things, about forgiveness, about seva, about all these things. And I think it makes you a terrible human being if you don't have this in you. And it's not like Raju Srivastava ji went specifically after Rohan.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that, right?
No, but again, that's his choice. It's his free speech.
It
so
is
why
his
double
free
standards
speech.
on it? If he actually
It
shits
is
on
his
you, you
free
shit on him
speech,
back.
but I
That's
think
it.
it just says a lot about the kind of person that he is, that you go after somebody even in their death. I think you just need to, dignity in death is the least we can do as humans.
So there is one more parallel argument when it comes to, say, boycott Bollywood or the stand-up scene being very westernized and woke and all of that, right? The one more thing I think people are generally disappointed is that you are destroying the institutions. Okay, for your own good or bad, that's debatable depending on what perspective you come from. But at the end of the day, what have you made as somebody who has that perceptual change in your attitude? If you're boycotting Bollywood, are you producing good movies? If you're saying that Raju Srivastava is bad, are you producing any good stand-up comics? So how do you envision this?
Well, I see a lot of the comedy that Raju Srivastava or his contemporaries created to be very timeless. These things are something that, they're watched, they're in popular culture and all of that. But just, aping something that a Western comedian does, I think that doesn't get you really far. Maybe you're hip, maybe a few people buy tickets to your show, but I mean, you're not the popular culture. You're not going to be remembered by generations. So I think it's very essential to have something original, keeping in mind the kind of people that you represent. I mean, the kind of society that you're in, and these kind of imports. I mean, it's of course their choice to pick up the genre that they want to specialize or the kind of genre that they want to advance. But I think you can see that they never make it to popular culture. The cult following and everything.
If you look at it, there's obviously when Democrats and Obama was especially there, you saw this rise in the tonight shows and night shows and all of that, and all these anchors and hosts were mesmerized with Obama and the idea of freedom that he represents, you know, being a black person and the first president from the community of color and all of that. But on the same time, I think you have a change in terms of even conservative comics coming to the scene. You have Bill Maher, you know, you have a lot of guys.
You have Ben Shapiro, you've got Candace Owens.
Yeah.
So you've got there's been a change, and I think, I mean, as society evolves, then it needs to kind of, I think there's this one side changing, then there's the other side changing, then there are undercurrents that begin. Yes, but I think it just doesn't do well for a society to just copy something so religiously. I think
but even when I speak to my comic friends who you know, work in the left circles and all of that, and I tell them, I give them examples. There's Joe Rogan, there's you know, Bill Burr, who I really enjoy, and some of even Dave Chappelle I don't know what his political leanings are, but he's, you know, criticized a lot of the left and the woke movements very, very vigorously, and he was called transphobic and all of that, right? So it's there. It's not like it's not there. The problem is that you go on cancelling everybody. So who's left?
Yeah.
There's actually nobody left. You have to watch sources say for comedy from now on. That's it. And Rashmi is being so serious until now. So which is why we were thinking we'll take this small break. But I'm really glad. Last time on the show we were speaking about getting you a couch, and then we were actually thinking about coffee with Karan. Finally we couldn't get you a very nice couch, but I think this really adds up. It looks a little
With dog hair. I think there's dog hair here.
Yeah, that's an additional incentive to pet lovers now that they know there's a dog around.
I adopted a dog, by the way.
I did see that.
Yes. So, I mean, we've never had a dog in our family, and I think my family has been very against me having a dog.
Yeah.
But then
same, I think it's all Indian families.
My
First you take care of yourself and then
So there's this whole analogy that you take care of yourself, you're already taking care of you, then do we take care of a dog and all that. But she came into our family rather very suddenly. So I was out of home, so they didn't have a child at home. But I think she had an accident on the road nearby. She's a street dog, and then she's a small puppy, and then my mom picked her up, and then they nursed her back to health. She was inside the house for the time, but then they can't let go of her now.
But I'm sorry, I mean, that's really nice. But you know, I think these pet lovers can go to an extreme. Like in Bangalore, it's a huge menace, dude. Like, my producer Dhruva got bitten by a big, which breed was that? Saint Bernard. It's a huge dog. And he got bit, his flesh was out. And he's still alive.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about that.
And people have huskies. Like Bangalore weather is still maybe adaptable, but it's still not technically. I mean, they were in Siberia and all.
I mean, people have huskies in Udupi. It's so hot. I mean, I don't blame the dogs. I think huskies are not meant to be in Udupi, and just because people think that, you know, it's some kind of I mean, they treat animals more like a, you know, like a, what do you say, an addition to their collection rather than as actual lives. I think real pet lovers, I think these are the extremists that you're talking about. These are a lot like champagne socialists. Completely socialist on the outside but can't let go of champagne.
Children in apartment complexes and all of that. So people have
I mean, because you can't have animals in, you know, restricted spaces. They need to be free. Otherwise, there's a lot of pent-up emotions.
Absolutely.
So you can't just have them cooped up and, you know, cooped up in a small room and all that. I mean, we have a huge house, we have a huge courtyard, so it can play around, and then, you know, there's a lot of space. So she's a very happy dog. She doesn't.
Even dogs are westernized these days. If you look at it, all huskies and Bernards. Like, we have such good indie breeds.
Mine is an indie dog. Okay, she's literally from the streets, and she's the most beautiful.
Those are huge dogs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can get that,
Yeah, you
but
can
you
get
want
that.
a German Shepherd and all of that. The only celebrity I respect when it comes to dog is Rashmi Samant, especially because of Charlie 777.
But wasn't that a Labrador or
It
a
was a
golden
lab.
retriever?
It
What
was a
it?
lab.
It was a lab.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think labs are still okay. I may be wrong. Please don't hound me on this. But yeah.
But I think, see, I have noticed this myself. So ever since I got my puppy, I see this, that puppies are very sensitive.
Yeah.
So when puppies are just, done feeding off their mom's milk, what they do is they start eating, things that are out on the street, the food.
Right.
They're so sensitive. Even if the food is a little old, they get, they puke blood and then they die. And it's
Right.
horrible. 80% of the puppies don't make it to adulthood. That's the reason why, despite street dogs breeding so fast, we don't have as many dogs compared to how many there should have been. That's because they die, and it's pathetic. I think we need to address these things. We need to direct our humanity here to address these problems. We need to neuter dogs as much as possible. We need to shelter the ones which are already born. We need to take care of them, and I think that is where real humanity and real pet love lies.
Right.
I mean, if you're just keeping a pet miserable, like you have a husky and in a very warm, place, I think it doesn't make sense.
There are celebrities who like this white aesthetics. They wear white and white, and they have the entire interior with ivory and other sorts of white. So they have white dogs just so that
poodles,
it's Instagrammable.
It's Instagrammable and it's aesthetics. It's just another, an apparel, or it's just another, like you have a handbag, it's another, a thing in your whole thing. I think that is very bad. You've objectified even animals, and then you mask all these things under the pretense of dog love, just like champagne socialists do. I mean, they think socialism is cool and fancy, and they can't let go of their champagne.
Take out the right ones.
So I think it's absolutely horrible how this thing is. I think it needs to be directed in a very specific way. But that being said, I think there's a lot of valid points that a few pet lovers bring up right now. So there's a lot of handling. I think in Kerala there was a culling of dogs as well, which the government tried to do, and I think that is horrible. I mean, you can't just cull something because they are inconvenient. We have to deal with it.
But the ones who I don't have absolutely any sympathy for are cat lovers. Dude, it scratches you, it destroys your furniture, it doesn't give a shit if you're sad, you're heartbroken, you're broke, it literally doesn't care. And my friends are like, yeah, that's the best part of it.
But I think it's good, right? It gives you standards to live up to, be a cat.
Yeah, live like a queen.
Live like a
Absolutely
queen.
no regrets.
So, yeah.
Did you watch Brahmastra?
No.
Is it because you're boycotting or because you're busy?
No, but I don't watch Bollywood, and I don't watch films generally, and I don't even watch cricket and all that. I'm just too busy.
Big
with life.
red
I'm boring.
Yeah.
I'm boring. My hobbies are boring. I don't watch movies. I don't watch cricket.
So how do you chill? How do you spend time?
I mean, I'm just working.
See, I won't buy this argument that no, I'm working. Of course you are. Nobody is denying that. All of us are. But having spoken to everybody literally from all fields, one thing that I know is that nobody is as busy as they claim to be. They will have time somewhere. But it's just that they're either lying on the couch and watching Netflix and they're covering up for it or something, which is okay. I'm not saying it's bad. So, what's your guilt trip or go-to hobby or something like that?
Just, I think, catching up on lost sleep.
Yeah? That's very important.
That's a good hobby. That's a good hobby. If I have nothing to do, I just sleep.
Yeah.
I think that's what I do, and I think I've become a very boring person that way. I read sometimes, I think. I catch up on a lot of reading, and I love reading books on either sides of the aisle.
Right.
Let me be very honest. I have a very extensive collection.
Yeah.
And you'll find a lot of politically incorrect books there as well. So I love reading all kinds of these things. So I read quite a lot. I try to read, so when I can.
Yeah.
Currently I'm reading something.
My library is actually set up like that. I have a private library and there's a library in my studio which the audience can actually see. Not this one, so don't check out the books here. The first two layers, it has all politically correct books all of that. But the camera cuts off there. They can't see what's below. So you really have to be privileged or close to me to actually see what kind of nonsense I read from time to time.
See, I don't believe that you need to have blinkers to prove ideological honesty. I think ideological honesty comes from knowing all sides of the argument.
Absolutely.
And then picking up the best thing. Having blinkers, that's extremism. That is, some kind of, you're patronizing one particular ideology. That comes up from a position of weakness.
But do you think that's a common story today? It's not just you and I. And I think largely the audience also knows, and I've confessed this on camera several times, that we were initially left-leaning, or at least we were centrist, or whatever that meant. But definitely I was never right-leaning for that matter, apart from in terms of economics or something. So it's been a massive change. And a few things have enabled that change, whether it's the political environment that shifted or the intellectual landscape that's widened up today. You don't find the same set of people going to literature festivals. There's diversity in that. There's conceptual challenges being made by several people from our side as well. Do you think that's a common story for many people in India, especially our age?
To have what, blinkers?
No, to basically be a fence sitter for a while, or have a different inclination and then finally come here.
Yeah, maybe. I think as long as they're on their personal journey, I think it's fine. But if they have some sort of blinkers and they're doing it for being fancy or acceptable, I think then that's a problem.
Yeah.
If you're a fence sitter because you don't understand two sides of the arguments clearly
scared
enough,
yeah.
I think even that is a little bit of a
Exaggeration.
discouraging thing. I think there's nothing to be scared of, I think, in this thing. It's just a very huge stereotype that, there's only space for one particular ideological this thing here.
Maybe that's because I very humbly disagree. Because it's a subjective experience again. It's not that both of us are wrong or right. It's just that I think it's based on human experience. Because I've studied only in Catholic institutions a large part of my life, and that environment has an effect on you, because people think in a similar way, people behave in a similar way, they have similar lifestyles, and it's very unfashionable to be a right-winger. So, and it was the case. We were called closet Sanghis when we were in college. So
the only Catholic institution I went to was Oxford.
Right.
That too for my masters.
Yeah, and see how it ended up.
What a Catholic institution! I mean, you've got churches in all of your colleges.
Yeah.
Every other roundabout is a church, and it is so. I mean, you've got the divinity school, and for a university that preaches everything, secular values, socialism, this, that, everything, still holds on to a faith which says that the earth is flat.
Had you been the president for one more year, I'm sure there would be Mandir Vai Banayenge campaign in Oxford. I think that's what you're hinting at. You guys have one, we will also have one.
How can you hold on to a divinity school where you teach that the earth is flat, when you have the cutting edge...
Oh, that happens?
I mean, isn't that what Christianity preaches? That earth is flat?
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally the Bible. And then if you are a Christian institution, if you have so many churches, if you have masses every other day, and if you have this sort of clergy within your own, institution, then you're actually endorsing these things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for an institution that is preaching secularism, that is so far up there, saying things like, on the science and the medical sciences, this thing, I mean, discovering vaccines and all that, and then you have a divinity school, and then you have churches everywhere, which preach that the earth is flat. I mean, I believe in Hinduism because it is so scientifically rooted.
Right.
It preached that earth was, that it was not flat, and then it's, we've had all of the constellations, we've known everything in our science, it's been a science. It's more of a
evidence-based.
It's evidence-based. It's more practical. It's more in harmony with nature. So that's the only reason I believe, because there's some logic to it. It's not because I was born into it, or I identify with it, or it's something that I have allegiance to. Because I truly believe in it, and the beauty of it, and the depth and the richness that it brings in. Of course, I do believe that it was polluted along the time that invaders came in. It was made more rigid during the time that invaders came in, be it the Islamic invasion or the colonialism. But I think the original, tenets of Sanatana Dharma, they're so beautiful, and they're
But maybe it's
timeless.
adaptive. Like if you look at it, there were certain phases in our history that it hardens the Hindutva aspect of things, which you're seeing today, because there is some sort of a civilizational challenge that people perceive.
So in Bhagavad Gita, it is told. So Arjuna has this, conflict about ahimsa, right?
Yeah.
He thinks that, ahimsa is paramo dharma, that is your first dharma. But then Krishna tells him that, when you can't uplift dharma by being ahimsa, this thing, because people are attacking your dharma.
Yeah.
They're attacking your righteousness, they're taking your peacefulness for granted, and they're literally booting you out for no reason, and they're abusing you. Then you have to, controlledly retake what is your right. So I think, that comes there. You can't just be, you slap me on one side and you slap me again on the other side. That is not okay. If somebody is violating your space, then you have the very right to defend it.
Yeah.
So I think defending something is not wrong. So I think that is not, it doesn't come from that. It's rooted in our, they told it way back then that there will be a time when you have to defend your rights because people are not okay with your identity.
Correct.
Then you'll have to defend it. Yeah, that's getting more. That got really serious again.
How do we end up getting serious like every 10-15 minutes, dude? Like, we started with the most random thing, talking about dogs and comedians. I'm not saying in parallel, people will get offended for that also. Comparing dogs to comedians and all of that. I'm not. But how are your TV debates and all of that? Give us a little gossip on what happens in the newsrooms and studios and all of that.
I don't go on newsrooms, I go on Zoom.
So this is the studio access that you probably get. So this is the privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's privilege. I've never been to a newsroom. I've
Is
been
it?
to so many debates. I've never been to a newsroom.
No, you're very lucky. It's kind of a toxic environment there.
Surely.
It's very bad. The
I thought
working
I'd
hours
get
are
coffee
very
tea
bad.
and all. I thought I'd get coffee, tea, biscuit and all.
Really, you want to go to a newsroom for coffee, tea and biscuit? After a couple of times, you'll get bored of it.
Maybe I want to do it once, for the sake of
Yeah.
it. Like, to get the feel. But here I'm just like hopping on a Zoom meeting. Like, it's some kind of a one meeting.
But I'm scared because I'm generally a very non-aggressive person. But if somebody, like on camera, people go crazy. Like you had Trishuls and, all of that being
That
thrown at
happened
each
to
other,
me.
bottles being thrown at each other.
Really?
Like you seen all these Hindi...
Inside the...
In the studio, yeah.
Oh my god, thank god I didn't go there.
There was a moment when I think Arnab was conducting a debate. It's a popular meme also today, There was a Pakistani guy, there is an Indian guy, and both of them, it's really heated up. And the other guy takes like a missile's cutout on a thermocol, he's showing like this, and the other guy is holding a Trishul and he's showing like this, and it's just crazy.
Oh my god.
Sometimes I actually miss
Are
that.
they trying to break the fight or are they trying to...
No,
film
I
it?
think this was, both of them were at home. So now I have given you some ideas for it.
No, I don't think what not to do. So I think that what not to do this. But I don't know. I mean, of course, sometimes your blood is like racing because,
Yeah.
some people usually start all these like personal attacks. Like they
Yeah.
start doing that. And, because they don't have any points to come up with.
Yeah.
So that gets a little like,
So how do you respond in the same tone or do you respond?
No, I don't think I respond in that same tone.
In
I choose to
Hindustani.
I choose to call them bullies and who they are, because they're bullying me.
Yeah.
They can't bully me on TV, so they call them. I start name calling. So,
Okay.
but I don't like do that. You and
Yeah.
like you're mad, and I don't try to do all
Yeah.
that. And I think I'm very civic that way. So.
ये नया हिंदुस्तान है स्टूडियो में घुसता भी है और मारता भी है. What was that from Uri? Something
I
like
don't
that.
know. Yeah, maybe Uri.
Uh,
I think that's the army, right? I mean, we are on a news channel. This is debating.
No,
I think
but
we
it's
don't have to
insane.
like think of ourselves as all too important people.
Yeah.
Like I think that comes from a very.
No, but I can feel the frenzy. I'm not even a mainstream news anchor or anything, but once the camera goes on, a few of my guests that I have interacted in the past, it's actually crazy. They have a completely different attitude. They switch up.
Am I like that?
What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?
Dude, don't lie, liar.
I didn't even say anything.
Liar, I'm the same. I'm a respectful,
You are.
good person. Like come up with adjectives.
You are a liar.
You're a liar. I'm going to start name calling now if you start lying.
Wait,
I'm the
you
same
went to
one.
a NDTV debate for the first time. What was that?
Oh
But then
God.
it's largely quite polite.
No, it wasn't
It
polite. So it's not impolite,
Right.
but then you clearly see a bias.
Bias, yeah.
And then you clearly see that you're the only panelist on one side. At least,
Yeah.
Republic, all of them are decent enough to call equal number of people on both sides of the debate. At least they do that.
Lot of people, but yes.
Lot of people, yes.
See, I'm one in the 12 box of 12.
But usually I'm the only
What are you,
woman.
donuts or your panelists? Like, you're 12 people
Listen,
there.
no, so I find myself to be the only woman on many of these debates and only young person on many of these debates.
Do you feel privileged about that or sad?
I feel sad about that, but then I feel like, okay, at least there's one voice. At least I feel that despite there being so many panelists, I bring a unique voice to the table. I feel sad, but then I also feel that there is some importance to what I'm doing.
Right.
But getting back to NDTV, I felt like they didn't bring up, like at least 2-2 or 3-2 would have been fair. It was just me and the other three were egging on me. And they were saying such horrible, like factually incorrect things.
Yeah.
And I think it's the,
a lot of people have actually
the host to intervene and, stop people from saying incorrect things. But he wasn't. I mean, literally one of the panelists, when I said that there's been a call for gathering at Birmingham and in front of the Durga temple and there could be an attack, he said, I'm in Birmingham, nothing is happening, there's been no call. And next minute, the entire, temple is mobbed and, people are this thing and there are already posters stuck. And the host is simply like, saying, stop hate-mongering, Rashmi. I'm not hate-mongering. I'm literally telling
what's
happening.
Yeah.
And then I think it's more left than right or center. So I think it should be left, but not right and center.
But a lot of people are excited that Adani will take over, Ambani will take over something. But I don't really know if ideological changes are reflected because ultimately the editorial largely remains the
as
same.
well by the end of the day. See, I keep my business very separate. My business it doesn't run on ideology. If I base my business on ideology, then economics would take a huge hit. I mean, I do have certain ethics which are Hindu, which is about seva and all of that, and the way we treat our staff, all that. Yes, there is a lot of Hinduness there. But when it comes to business, then you can't really bring in a lot of that in there because business is cutthroat and it's black and white there. So you can't just, bring in your ideology too much there. And I think the left wing is known a lot to leverage their business positions to bring in ideological changes, but the right is largely known for not doing that. So I think
they want to be the people who protect everybody's freedom of speech.
So I think it's going to be a freedom of speech platform.
Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, let me interview you. Do you want to be interviewed?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me have the privilege for the first time of being interviewed.
Okay.
And I want to be like Karan Thapar but actually Karan Thapar as an interviewee, he's been grilled many times. He's generally known for being very obnoxious, cocky, and a very rude, interruptive host. At the same time, if you look at 2-3 of his interviews, it's actually the opposite. I think Suhail Seth was grilling him in one. There was
let me start grilling you. Okay.
You got the idea.
I got the idea. Yes, I got the idea. Interject and then, short answers. Let's do this like Vogue 100 questions.
Sure.
So I'm not going to get to 100 questions, but maybe I can.
But it's so fake. You look at those Vogue and all
Okay, I'm asking questions now. Shoo.
Yeah.
You're the host.
Sorry.
Shoo.
Yeah.
So, okay. Why journalism?
Passion.
Bangalorean. Why Bangalorean? Do you like Bangalore?
By birth.
Okay,
by choice.
By choice.
By every means.
By every means. Bangalore rains or Bangalore traffic?
Bangalore rains.
And it's flooding. How can you say Bangalore rains? It's causing floods.
But not Bangalore rains in traffic. That's the disastrous combination.
Yeah. I thought
when you're on your balcony, there's nice garden around you, you're sipping coffee in your hand and you're reading a nice novel. That's Bangalore.
What's the best thing about Bangalore?
The people.
People. Okay, political party. Which political party?
Everyone. I'm Nota. I'm Nota.
You're Nota?
I'm Nota. I'm actually Nota has...
Put on record, somebody write it down.
Actually, Nota has...
Cut out of the interview. Okay, you're Nota, no?
I tried to be politically correct.
You're Nota, no? Okay, Bommai or Yediyurappa?
Neither.
You can't say these things, yeah?
Of course I...
Okay, let me give you more options. Bommai, Siddaramaiah, Yediyurappa... There was Jagdish Shettar also for a while, right?
Yeah, I know who the chief minister is.
Also. Okay, pick one.
No, but can we keep this non-political, apolitical?
Why not? This is a political channel, right? I mean, there's so much politics discussed.
There is, but the other person discusses it.
But I'm supposed to grill you. Color, favorite color, music, hobby. No, I'm not going to do that.
People are so opinionated these days about everything that even if you say you're a dog lover, the cat lover gets offended. So you can literally ask anything and people will still be offended.
Are going to get offended. I think you need to carry your opinions on your sleeve. That's one thing I, realized after being brutally cancelled. Take it from me.
This is the second segment. The last time I asked you something and you were actually grilling me, but that was misconceived. But okay, I'm not trying to be an apologist. But this is the second segment where the audience will trim it out and then they say Hindu activist grills news anchor. Go for it. Please make me famous.
You asked for it. You asked for it. Now you can't be like, I'm getting grilled, blah, 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 Hindu activist.
No, but when we took a break, it was you who said, let me ask you interviews.
You said you wanted questions
No.
and that people are asking for one you've never given. Oh, no. Then I'm not asking. Okay, done. Interview done. Chop, cut. Done. You should be so ungrateful. No interview. Bye.
Maybe I should take this approach here sometime.
If you don't take the interview, then your interview is done, yeah.
Nobody's given me a 2 BHK, but I still interview people.
That's a good one.
You got the
reference. I got the reference. If she's watching. Okay.
But do you feel this, I'm sure because you interact with so many news anchors, and I won't take names because it can be objectification. I feel that there was a phase in journalism where the hottest girls would be recruited, the most attractive ones. They would be dumb as a bat. They would know nothing, but still because they have a really pretty face, they would be made news anchors. So I want you to give this bit on journalism without being politically correct. Because I personally, being in journalism, I can tell you that it's in a really bad shape. Like in general, as a profession, it's really bad. So does that disappoint you or scare you?
It disappoints and scares me that, that is what is given more importance than, be it how quick you are, how witty you are, or what your knowledge is, basically.
And when somebody gets scammed for being a Harvard professor, and people are saying you go to YouTube, and I'm like, bhai, what the hell? I started on YouTube and we see a digital future. And it's already there. It's not like it's not there. So many news organizations are completely digital these days.
Yeah, digital. And I think that
I really don't watch television.
Because it breaks the monopoly of the narrative that these, certain nexuses, certain mafias have been running. I mean, see, NDTV, it's known to recruit a certain level of kind of people. It's known to push a certain kind of agenda. But on YouTube, anybody's got the freedom to, actually turn up on YouTube and put out their views and, have people to choose to watch it or not. I think that is real freedom of speech.
There are news organizations today which on their website has a disclaimer saying that Dalits and tribals are generally encouraged more than the other people. I mean, I don't want to snatch the agency away from them. Of course, it has to be based on your merit and your talent and all of that. But it's, I don't know what to say when I read disclaimers like that.
Well, I think with respect to society, we need to empower people more. As in, you need to help them more. Rather than giving dole-outs and, freebies, you need to empower them more. Give them more education, enable them more. So I think there needs to be a shift in the way that we do social services. We need to be a fair society, not a welfare society.
Right. Oh
this is something I picked up from. No, this is something I picked up from the memoirs of the father of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. Yeah, he said that a society has to be fair, not welfare. Like to end inequalities, you shouldn't be doling out stuff.
Absolutely. But I have an argument about it.
You should put in work to bring in fairness. It's going to be a lot more hard work. It's going to be a lot less visible. Like for politicians. To build a vote bank, it's a lot more visible to be handing out free things and looking like you're doing a lot for society. Rather,
but see, as much as it's aspirational for you to take a Singapore or a Nordic or a Scandinavian country for inspiration, saying that our schools can be modeled on that, our hospitals can be modernized, and all of that.
No, just the ethic. I said fair, not a welfare society. I'm not saying that we need to be a Singapore. We need to be modeled like that. Certain principles, and I think. Fairness is something that's been in indigenous cultures as well as, right? It's about fairness, but not about, just handing out things, about things being welfare. It's more about being fair in things.
How do you see India 30 years later in 2047 or something like that? And let this be a very personal evaluation of it. Or how you would want to see it.
Personally, I think India is going to do very well, given the sort of degeneration
what
that
gives
other
you
societies...
That hope?
I mean, I see, right? I see degeneration in other societies. I see, I see these.
But
I
there is
think-
degeneration in the Indian society as well.
No, I think we're actually on the, I see life as a cyclical thing, you reach a peak and then, you come back and everything. I think we are still on the way to reach that peak, and many societies have actually crossed that and they're coming in that degenerative cycle.
Right.
I have very high hopes, and I think I'm a reckless optimist when it comes to my people and my community, and I think we'll do great things because...
You're really picking up on good quotes. I'm a reckless optimist.
No, but I am.
No, I'm not denying
I
that.
put it in my book as well.
But you're getting very good with television and all of that is what? It's an observation, it's a compliment, yeah? I'm being grateful. Because it's a cyclical thing. I corrected 2-3 things at once.
Right. So thank you for telling me I'm getting good at things, but I think practice makes a person perfect.
It was, if you remember, I don't know, I think it was almost a year ago since we had our first conversation. It was embarrassing. Not because of anything else, because, I was new to the platform and I was not comfortable on screen, and I actually thought it would not work out. But then you just, later on feel that it's just a table, it's just a camera, you're just comfortable.
Just comfortable. And I think, you're being honest about what you feel about a lot of things, and it's okay if other people feel differently, but if you can help somebody shape their ideas and help them less be on the fence and more be on this thing, and help people out there. I think by the end of the day, all we want is for the society to do better, not for somebody to be right or wrong. And this is not a endeavor for me to prove myself to be correct or somebody else to be wrong. It's just for society to be a better place by the end of the day. So that's why we speak about these things.
What irritates you the most, like personally speaking, not politically and all of that? Like somebody chewing next to your ear or something like that?
I think toddlers on a plane.
Oh God, I was just hoping you would not say that. Of course it's annoying. I'm not denying that.
I've had horrible experiences.
Achha.
Like, I've had this experience, and these are not the 1-year-olds or 8 months and those kids. They're better. They're still screaming, screeching. That's it. It's just noise pollution. These 2-3-year-olds, they're
walk.
No, who can't walk, who are confined to their seat.
Right.
They open their tray table, they're pushing, they're punching this thing in front of them.
Right.
It's horrible. I had a toddler just like that on my non-stop flight from Bangalore to London for about 9-10 hours. I had to endure that, and I was trying to catch up on some sleep. So I had a huge day ahead of me, and then it was just
Must have been one hell of a REM sleep.
Oh my God. So that is one pet peeve. And another one, I think, is food.
Okay. You're particular about your food?
Very particular about my food.
Like what, very Indian, you want that?
Yeah.
And homely?
Homely food.
Right.
I think I love homely food. I don't like
But what qualifies as homely? For me, rice and rasam can be homely because I'm a South Indian. Or Indian from the South, just to be politically correct these days.
No. I think I'm not very picky about rice rasam. I can eat anything like dal, bati, chokha.
What I do while traveling is I have the local food.
So I like the local food, but from local places.
Yeah.
I don't want to eat a dosa in a, in a 5-star or anything. I want to eat dosa in a small, that 50 rupees, 60 rupees, 30 rupees, the smaller restaurant. So even when I'm elsewhere in India, I like to eat from the smaller eateries than these fancy restaurants that just completely homogenize everything and then it's just crappy. And I think food is a pet peeve.
So how did you survive London and all these places? I would just being a from my community, we just carry a lot of achars and
I didn't
poddies
have time, so
and all
I
of
was
that.
cereal and milk, and then I would make rice sometime. I had pudi, chutney pudi.
My go-to thing is carry
Chutney
pickle,
pudi, rice, uppinkai, then mosru. Done, you're done.
Perfect.
So you're in heaven. So that was 7th heaven for me. And that was good. But South Indian restaurants were very terrible. You could still get some decent North Indian food, some Gujarati food and all we could get decent, but South Indian food, they can't. I think some Udupi hotels are
complex.
Unfortunately, they are a blemish to the whole Udupi cuisine because they don't know how to make it. So they're ruining our cuisine by claiming to be Udupi hotel.
What was very surprising is that during the pandemic, since I was a student in Manipal that time, I think there were about 12,000 cooks who came from Bombay and different places because they have all started working in a Udupi restaurant outside of Karnataka and Udupi. So there's barely anybody left in Udupi or in Bangalore for that matter.
So that irritates me. What else irritates me? Loud noise, lights. This kind of light.
So you're getting irritated right now?
Yeah, I'm getting very irritated
By the
the
light.
noise outside and the light here. So
Good. You took the couch, so face the heat.
So yeah, so I'm very like this thing to that. And what else irritates me? I can't think of anything.
I
A
don't.
lot of things irritate me. I have a list.
Okay.
Things that irritate me. Actively irritate me. What
Okay.
irritates you?
Huh?
What irritates you?
Almost everything. Breath of a person, sound of a chair moving. Like if I'm in a bad mood, like anything and everything irritates me, you know. But I think that's the basic mannerism with which people need to have. Today they don't have. So, okay, so people give a lot of excuses, right? That, okay, people are not educated, so they don't have mannerisms and all of that. I think that's utter BS. My
That's utter
grandparents
BS.
who never went to school are the most well-cultured,
Courteous.
very courteous, very nice people. And we guys who study in the most poshest of institutions are the most cockiest of it.
Bratty and all
Yeah.
that, yeah. And that I agree. I think a lot of humility, a lot of they have real life values, yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like we've
And it's passed on.
It's
Yeah.
passed on, yeah.
That one thing I take with pride from my parents is that they actually taught me a lot of things because I was an idiot and I wouldn't learn. So
They're very considerate of others,
Yeah.
and that chivalry is just it's
Absolutely.
missing in our generation. And I think these schools, this sort of Macaulayan education that
when
we've
girls
had,
speak about chivalry to me, I'm like, what makes you think that it's a value-added thing when it comes inherently
Sure,
from a
both ways
person?
also, yeah. I think it's not gender
It's
specific.
both ways, but
I think
what I'm
European,
saying is
I
that
think westernized chivalry is gender specific, but in
because
India,
there was no chivalry here, we did have
We did
chivalry.
have chivalry,
There was no
yeah.
necessity to overcompensate for that.
overcompensate for that, yeah. So I think chivalry is not gender specific, but like it is very essential. It's being courteous of one another
Yeah,
and being considerate that is another person.
yeah.
Take your crabs.
What's your favorite restaurant in Bangalore now that you've come here?
I don't know. I don't have favorite restaurants. I think I don't like enjoy eating out so much. I very much prefer if a friend calls me over and somebody cooks for me, you know.
Okay.
So I like that kind of a setting. So
Okay.
I love being invited home and being
Pampered.
no, like being given home cooked food
Right.
rather as opposed to being taken to a 5-star hotel and being given dinner. Like I
Right.
think I don't prefer that. So yeah, a lot of like homey things.
Sure, then.
So-
Think we should catch up on some home cooked food.
Home
then.
cooked food, yes. I can't cook, but yeah, if somebody
I
who
can cook.
Yes, home cooked food.
Quite
So
well.
rice, rasam, podi, and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rashmi, and give me a high five. This was fun. Hopefully, towards the end.
Hopefully, I hope there's enough fun content.
Yeah.
I don't want to be serious and brooding and like harping.
No, but most of the days, that's what I come unprepared because eventually, I mean, this was not particularly a subject-based interview. Oh my God, this is as unstable as my financials.
I relate.
No. It's a false modesty. Okay, thank you so much. I hope this was fun, and I'm really glad we could catch up and do this physical interaction finally after so long. We've been
Yes,
wanting
I'm so
to do
glad
this.
for this studio.
I'm really grateful to. This is the first time that I'm
Otherwise,
meeting
I'd
here
still
and
be like
the aesthetics
trying to
are
balance my phone and a pile of
Yeah.
books and it falls off in between, and I'm like, can you guy edit it?
That actually happened with me. Somebody visited my house and they were checking out my library, and there were a set of fat books, 2-3 of them, which I use my tripod to keep it on, and those were of a particular author. And they were like, "Why is it there?" I'm like, "You guess. Take your own guess. I don't want to say anything. I'll just say they are fat books. That's it."
Yeah, the fat books, that's it. Yeah, good answer.
Give a shout out. You're not
Shout
done.
out to what?
I don't
out.
know. Sources say Swarajya.
Sources say to Swarajya, follow these guys, wonderful work.
Yeah, it's been 8 years since Swarajya came into existence.
Oh,
recently.
so happy
Anniversary?
anniversary.
Yeah.
What anniversary would that be?
8th anniversary. I don't know what it would be.
Anniversary.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's a special word for
No, there's no metal involved, no silver, bronze, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy 8th anniversary, Swarajya. Doing great work. Give me a free subscription.
Oh, that we will. That we will. We are very chivalrous that way.
Yes.
Okay, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. And if I was being interruptive, it's just that I'm excited to do physical shoots out of my house for once. Do let us know what you thought about this conversation in the comment section below. And sorry to sound like an air hostess every time repeating the same lines. But this is Rashmi Samant with me in conversation for Swarajya and Bharat Varta. Stay tuned. Good night.